the transcription. All right, great. Okay, welcome everyone. I hope everyone's doing okay and having a good evening. Thanks for joining. I know evening lectures are tough, but I hope you enjoy this one. And please feel free to ask any questions. You can do it in the chat or unmute and ask away. All right. But before I start, what I'm going to do is I had some emails from students inquiring how to access the assignment. So what I'm going to do now is just show you how to access it. I'm hoping everyone can access their tertiary hub, but if they can't, you please let VC Assist know, log a ticket. All right, so I'm hoping everyone can see my screen, but just let me know if you can't. All right, so to get your assignment, what you first need to do is go to the tertiary hub here. All right, so I'll actually, let me just start from the beginning. Let's say you're in the tertiary hub here. So when you go to that site, this is what you would see. Now, if you scroll down, you'll see somewhere down on the right. Yeah, there we go. Here, student material. So you'd probably see it under something different. You won't see it under lecture toolkit, but you will see student material. If you click here, there's a bunch of folders that'll pop up. What you want to do is you want to search for what, I don't think it's case sensitive, but I'm just doing it anyway, 6221 and W. And when you do that, you'll see a lot of things pop up. So if you just click there you go, 2025, and then you're in term 1 here, and then you'll see your resources here. So your module outline is there, which I encourage you to download. I encourage you to download all of these. Your workbook, it has very nice exercises to work through, and I may direct you to some of those exercises for revision. And then your assignment is there, okay, the A1, assignment 1. All right, so for some of you that haven't accessed it as yet, this is how you do it. All right. But otherwise, I hope everyone has managed to get a hold of it. And then I posted the link for the support session for assignment 1. Hopefully, all of you have went through it already, but if you haven't yet, just view it. It's about 18 minutes, so it's not too long, and it just gives you an overview of what to expect for the assignment and how to go about answering it. It obviously won't give you the answers, but tells you the approach. So what I'm going to do in the next lesson, which is next week, Wednesday, because your assignment, I believe, is due on the 14th, and next Wednesday is the 12th, I think. So I'll allocate some time in that session for any questions you have about the assignment, like how to approach certain learning units. Obviously, I won't walk through the exact problem in the assignment, but if you have something, like for instance, if you're not sure, or if you're having trouble calculating the Laspeyres quantity index, then I'll show you using different data and a different problem, but the method still holds. All right, does that make sense? Does anyone have any questions before I carry on with today's learning unit? Because today we're going to kick off learning unit 3. I see no questions, so I'm assuming everyone's okay, all good. It's a question, okay. I see a hand raised. Andiva, hopefully I'm saying your name correctly. I apologize if I'm not, but yeah, if you have a question, please go ahead. I see your hand is raised. Where did you say the link for the assignment, Victor? So, Andiva, can you access the tertiary hub? So let me see, this is where you would be from the beginning. I'm assuming all of you can access this. This is the tertiary hub. Yeah, this is where you go. And if you scroll down, where was it? So, wait a second. Okay, under tertiary hub, you will see it. It's just taking a while to load. On the tertiary hub website, you will see a link here saying student material. This is where you click, and you click here, and then you search for what. Okay, does it make sense? Does it answer your question? Tertiary hub. I'll put this link in the chat. But everyone should be accessing this link. All right, okay. So let's start today's learning unit. So today we are kicking off learning unit 3, which is descriptive statistics. So as the name says, descriptive, it describes something, right? Now there's different types of characteristics you want to describe for data. The two things are where it's centered and how much is it dispersed. Okay, now centered, it's just intuitively you actually do use this in your lives. You just never formally gave it a name as a central measure, etc. So if you had, say, a class of marks, right? So if I had, please, I'll be sharing my whiteboard. Okay, so if you do see anyone in the lobby, someone could just click to admit them in. That will really help me. I really appreciate that. All right, so coming back to the central measures, if I had a class of, say, 20 students, right, and they wrote some test, they wrote a test in mathematics, and if I wanted one number to kind of summarize their performance, okay, I think all of us would, the first thing that would come to our mind would be the average. If you take the average of that class mark, it would be a good representation of the overall performance. And often, because our mind works in that way, we can generally just use one number to summarize it. To look at 20 numbers and try and make sense of it can be a bit difficult. And especially if I want to compare that class to another class that wrote the same test, you would generally use the average, right? And the average is just the total marks of all the students divided by the number of students. So if we had 20 students, we would add up those 20 marks and we divide it by 20. So let's look at this example here. Now these numbers that I'm showing you, these are the credit card spending of 5 people per month. So person 1 spends 2,200 rands in a month. Person 2 spends 2,450 rands, and person 3 to 5, etc. Right, all the way to the last person, the 5th person, who spends 2,800. Now, what I've done for you here is I've put these numbers in order from lowest going to highest, going from left to right. Just don't expect the data to be ordered for you. Okay, you should order it if it's presented to you in your assignment, not this assignment, but your next one, and in your exam. And get into the habit of ordering your data because it'll make your life easier. So I've ordered it lowest to highest. Now, if I wanted the average, we would all just add these numbers up and we would divide by how many people there are. In our case, we have 5 people. Now, gone are the days when we're just going to use our calculator and start adding up the numbers. So everyone, take out your calculator. You're going to work through this with me. I'm going to show you how to use your stats mode on your calculator. So have your calculator with you. Like I said, for every session, the 2 things you must have with you is your calculator and your textbook. Okay, so if you got your calculator with you, what we're going to do is we're going to use the stats mode to get the average. So the first thing you want to do on your stats calculator, and after you switch it on, of course, is you want to press the mode button. Okay, so I'll write it out. And if anyone's lost, please let me know. So you look for the mode button on the top right, and you're going to click that. And you click that, and you will see 3 options. The options I want you to select is the stat mode option. In my calculator, it says option 2, but whatever number it is, okay? The number next to it is 2, then you're going to type 2. I want the stat mode. Okay, so we're all going to select the stat mode. Right, like that. Now you'll be presented with a lot of options here. Okay, the option you're going to look for is this option, which is 1 minus variable, VAR. On my calculator, it's option 1. It might be the same for yours. And if it is, then you select that option. But this is what we're looking for. Okay, so you select that option, option 1. And then you'll be presented with, some of you will see 2 columns. Some of you will see an X column, and some of you will see a frequency column. If you don't see the frequency, don't worry, we'll sort that out in a second. But everyone should have this X column. So I'm just going to stop there for a second and check if anyone's lost. Okay. And everyone's okay. We're all following. Everyone has their calculator and we're ready to do this. No questions? So I assume everyone's on the same page, but just let me know otherwise. All right, so let's get back to our data. Now what you're going to do is you're going to store this data in your calculator. The data that you've been presented with, these numbers, we're going to store it in our calculator. All right, so the first number that you want to store, now if you look at your calculator, this first row should be highlighted. You should see like a block that's shaded here. And all that means is that the cursor is there. That means it's ready to capture the number here. So the first number you want to capture here is you're going to type 2,200 and you're going to press equals to this button here. And that'll, think of the equals to as your enter on your computer. And it's going to capture that. So 2,200, all right, equals to. And then it moves on to the next line, right? You're on the next line. Yeah. Then you're going to capture the next number, which is 2,450. So we're going to capture that 2,450. And then what do we press to capture it? We press equals to. Do that. And then you'll see you captured the first 2 numbers. So what I want you to do is I want you to capture the rest of them up to the 5th number. So you should capture all the numbers with the last number being 2,800. And once you finish that, just give me a heads up on the chat. I want to make sure everyone's on the same page and we're all following. So you should have 5 numbers stored there with the last number being 2,800. So drop a message on the chat once you're finished. And if anyone's stuck, confused, please let me know. Let me check. Nobody, is everyone lost? Does everyone capture the numbers? Plus, you got to give me feedback. It's a very quiet class tonight. Did anyone lost or confused? All good? Good. Jessica? You got your hand raised? Do you have a question?
Sorry. Everything's okay.
Okay. All right. Let's get back to the board, right? Everyone's got all the numbers stored, right? Now, what you do with your calculator is you can press the on button, you can press AC, but you do not press the mode button again. Okay? Don't press the mode button again. Okay, you can press on if you want. Your data is still there. And if you don't believe me, what you do is, okay, you press Shift on the top left of your calculator. Shift. All right? And then you press the button 1. And why you press the button 1, the number 1, is because above that, you'll see it says stat above it. So you're going to press this next. And then you'll see an option that says data. In my calculator is option 2. So select option 2 or wherever data is. And if you do that, you'll see your data is still there. So you haven't deleted it. Right, that's how you can sense check that your data is there. Okay. All right, so you got the 2,450, you got all your data stored. Right, now we are going to get the average. So to do that, you need to know the symbol for average, because your calculator doesn't say average or it doesn't say mean. You need to understand the symbol for average is X bar. So we need to get our calculator to return this variable. And how we do that, okay, make sure everyone presses on. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to press Shift, press this now. Then we're going to press 1, the button 1, next. And then you're going to choose the option 4, which is variables. Okay, so you'll see an option that says VAR. Whatever that number is next to it. In my calculator is number 4. Right, you'll select that. And then you'll see this symbol here. X bar is your average there is. And so you select whatever number is next to X bar. If it's 2 that's next to it, that's what you press and hit equals to. Finally, you press equals to, and it'll tell you what your average is, which is, everyone should get this. If anyone didn't get 2490, let me know. It probably just means you made a mistake with capturing the data, but your average should be 2490. So that's the average spending of credit card per month. Anyone lost? Anyone need me to repeat that process? All good? Assume everything's okay, but just let me know otherwise. Okay, so that's how you find the average. So we don't need to do this whole long process of adding all the numbers and then dividing by 5. Okay, your calculator can, once you capture the data, your calculator can return the average very fast. Right? If you wanted the total of these numbers, if you wanted to add up all these numbers, then the symbol for that is sum, is this symbol here. And your calculator can even give you that if you wanted. So for instance, press on in your calculator, press on. What you now press is shift. Press shift now, press button shift, then press stat, the number 1 actually, press that. And you'll see, you'll see the option sum. And on my calculator, it's number 3, you'll see here. And that'll give you all the sums that you need for your data. So if you select that, option 3, and you'll see what I was talking about, your sum of X, basically the total of all your credit card spending, not the average, this is the total, is there. You can select that if you want, if you just wanted to know the total. So that's how you use your calculator to find totals, sums, and you can find variables like your mean, right? Okay, now we've got the mean. Now there's different ways of kind of just illustrating what the central tendency of your data is. The one way we just showed you, or I just showed you, is the average, the mean. But that's not the only way to, that's not the only measure of a central tendency, okay, of your data. There's another measure called the median. And the median is just the middle number. So let me show you what the median is for this data and how to work it out. Now, fortunately, there isn't too many data points. There's only 5 data points. So it's pretty easy to work it out and pretty fast. The first thing you must ensure with your data before you get the median is that it is ordered from lowest to highest. And that's what's done already. Okay, so your data is ordered. You've got the lowest number on the left and the highest number on the right. Okay, so it's in increasing order. Now, if you have 5 numbers like this, you can easily see the middle number here. The middle number will be this number. I'll show it in green. It's kind of easy to see it. It's here, right? But we need a way to formally get this number. So if there were, like, say 20 numbers or 25 numbers, we need to have a system to kind of point us to where the central number is. And the way to do that is to get this position where this green arrow is. What you do is you determine how many numbers you got. So in our case, how many data points? We have 5 data points, and we read that number be represented by n. N is 5, so it just means 5 data points. Okay, 5 people, credit card spending amounts. And how you find the middle position, the formula for the position, for the median, is this. It's n plus 1 all over 2. So in our case, our n is 5, so it's 5 plus 1 all over 2. Okay, so that's 6 over 2, and that's 3. And that's what tells us that it's the third position. So it's here's your first position, second position, third position. So there's your median. Whatever number corresponds to that position, in our case, it's 2,500. So your median, we denote it by ME, but you can write the full name if you want. Your median is 2,500. All right. And how we would interpret this, we don't just say the median is 2,500. We always interpret in terms of the data. Now, let me know if this doesn't make sense to you. Okay, if that's the middle number, this is the middle number, that means half the data is below it and half the data is on the right of it. In other words, half the data is above it. And another way of saying half is 50%. So what we can say is 50% of credit card spending, I'm just going to put CC for credit card spending, is less than, I'll use this math formula for less than 2,500 rands. Does that make sense to everyone? Does everyone not understand this? Remember, the median is in the middle, so that means half the data is below it, right? So 50%, in other words, half of credit card spending is below 2,500 rands. I'm going to go back to the chat and see if anyone has any questions. Good. Okay. All right. So we've done the mean, in other words, the average. Mean and average is the same thing. That's this. We've done the median, and there's a third measure of central tendency, which you need to know, which is the mode. Okay. The mode is actually very easy to determine. There's not much calculation involved when the data is like this, when it's not grouped. It's raw data that you see here. The mode is just the number that occurs the most amount of times in this data. And looking at the data, what do you think is the mode? Which number occurs the most amount of times? Can you put that in the chat, please? Okay, there's your data. Just let me know which is the mode based on this data. So which number occurs the most amount of times? I'm going to go to the chat. Yes, exactly. That's it. It's 2,500. It occurs more than the other numbers. So that's your mode. There's no calculation involved. It's just seeing which number occurs the most amount of times. And if you place your data in order, it's easy to see it. So your mode is also the same as your median, 2,500. Very good. All right. Now, you may ask, okay, why are there three measures for data, for central tendency? Why do we need all three? Why can't we just use the average? Well, they both have their pros and cons, okay? Let me give you an example of the outliers in data and how it affects your average. In other words, this term here. And you may ask, okay, what is an outlier? An outlier is just, let's look at a very simple example, right? And I think everyone can associate with this. Let's say we had, instead of credit card spending, we were capturing the salaries of people across the US, right? Now, I don't know what the average salary in the US is, but I'm just going to make up a number here, right? Let's say it's $25,000. I'm making this up really. 25. So you got person one, you get $25,000. Person two gets about $26,000, right? Etc. Etc. And then there's this one person, and maybe it's Elon Musk, whose salary is exceptionally high, right? Per annum. I'm making up a number, 1 billion, right? Now, if you had to work out the average of the salaries here, remember you're working with the average salary of the typical American. When you work out the average, you have to add up all these numbers, right? All the way to here, and then you're going to divide by how many people you have. Now, this person's salary here is going to pull that total abnormally high, and it's going to make the average look bigger than what it should be. So this is the outlier. This is the outlier. And when you put this outlier's salary into the data set, it's going to skew what the average is. It isn't going to be a true reflection of the typical American salary. So you don't really want that outlier to be in the data. Or if it is, you don't really want to use the average, because your average is going to get affected by that outlier. Does everyone understand that example? So outliers affect the average for the mean. Any questions? All good? Please remind us what to do if there are two modes. Very good question. If there are two modes, just say there are two modes. So for instance, that's a very good question. Let's just say in our data here, there was another number. There was 2,800 again. So here, these numbers occur twice, and these two numbers occur twice. So your mode, what you would say is 2,500 and 2,800. Your data can have two modes. It is possible for it to have two modes, as in this example. Does that make sense? All good? Does that answer your question? No worries, no problem. All right. Okay, so that's how you get the mean, the median, and the mode. Now, some of you may be familiar with histograms, right? If you construct a histogram for data, right, and I'll draw it here, a rough sketch. So say you had a histogram of data, and it could represent anything. It could be salaries, credit card spending. So you got your horizontal axis, that, okay, and this could be, say, credit card spending. What you would do is you'd have a bar, rectangular block like that. The next one will be next to it. Like that. So what I'll do is I'm gonna draw a line in green, because I like my colors, that touches the corner points of these blocks. Do it like this, like that. And then going on this side is touching the right corners. Yeah. So let's ignore the blocks now. I'm going to remove these blocks and just focus on the green line. Right. This line represents how your data is distributed. Okay. So you can have a line that's, I'm going to draw this line a bit better now. Okay. I think you get the idea of what that green line represents. I'm just going to draw it a bit neater. It's like this. You can have your line looking like that. You can also have the line looking something like this. Okay, like this. Draw another version of it here. This. You can see they're shaped a bit differently. Now the one on the top, this distribution here, this is a shape, an example of symmetrical shape. It's symmetrical. What I mean by symmetrical is if you look at the highest point of this green line over there, if I draw a line down, going down like that, why it's symmetrical is because the left side, that everything on the left of this line, here, this is the left side, it looks almost identical to the right side. It's like a mirror image of each other. However, in the bottom one, there's the highest point here, I draw a line going down. This left side is not the same as the right. You can see this right side is much longer. So this is not symmetrical. So this is symmetrical. And this is a distribution that's skewed to the right. So you can either say positively skewed, or you can say skewed to the right. Both are correct. So I'll say skewed to the right. The right. Now, why I bring this up is because depending on what the values are for your mean, your median, and your mode, that will tell you what the shape of this distribution is. And you need to know that when all three of them are equal, when all three of these values are equal, then your distribution is symmetrical. So in this case, here, the center point it represents your median, it also represents your mode, and it also represents your average. All of them are the same. However, for the graph in the bottom, the highest point is always your mode, right? And next to it is your median. The median is the middle number, and on the right of it is your average. Okay, so when you have a skewed distribution to the right, then this is the order of your mode. Your mode is the smallest number, so it's less than the median, and then the median is even lower than the average. So your highest number is your average, the median would be the middle, and the mode is the smallest. And if you just remember this one, that's skewed to the right, then it's very easy to remember the last one, which is skewed to the left, because then the numbers are just in reverse order. So I'll just draw that here on the left. So you have an idea. Skewed to the left, it'll look like this. It's a mirror image of this one here. It's a mirror image of that, so it goes the other way. So here, this is where your peak is, drags out to the left. In this case, your mode is your highest number. This is the largest number, mode. Then it's your median, which is still in the middle. And then it's your average. Your average is actually your smallest number. Okay, and this is negatively skewed or skewed to the left. The left. Okay, let me go to the chat. Does anyone have any questions? Everyone following? Anyone want me to go back and explain something different? So I'm going to have to leave the lecture. I need to get ready to break fast. So no problem. Completely understand. The recording will be available. Thank you. You too. All right. All right. So far, thanks for the feedback, everyone. We've done the mean, the median, and the mode, but we've done it for ungrouped data. So this data that I've given you here, it's not grouped. It's the raw data. But you can get data that's grouped. And what I mean by grouped is you can get it in a frequency table like this. I'll show you here. So this is an example of group data. So let's look. I just want to draw your attention to the first two columns. So I'm going to just draw your attention here. Just focus on these two columns, because this is what you'll be presented with in your questions. Right? You'll only be given these two columns. And in this example, what the first column represents is it shows grocery spend bands, right? And what I mean by bands is if you look at the first row, this first row here, 0 to 400. What it's saying is people who spend between 0 to 400 Rand for groceries. And your frequency column tells you how many people actually do that. So here it's 0. So what it means, nobody spends that little amount. In the next row, the band has increased. So now it goes from 400 to 800. And here it's telling you that 7 people spend between 400 and 800. And then we do it for the next row. Now it goes from 800 to 1,200. And here we have the most amount of people, which is 14. Most amount of people spend between 800 and 1,200 Rand on groceries. And what you'll notice is as I go from row to row, right, the interval width, right, it's going in 400s. What I mean by that is the first band, you can spend between 0 and 400. So the range, that is, if I take the highest number in this band minus the lowest number, so 400 minus 0, that's 400. In the next row, that class width is still the same. That is, you're going from 400 to 800. So if you subtract the higher number, 800 to 400, that width is still 400. And what you'll find for group data is the width is always the same going down the rows. It doesn't change. So the class width, which we represent by C, is 400. And I'm mentioning this because we're going to use this number. That's why I'm showing it to you now. All right. And wherever the first interval ends, the next interval begins. So this one ends at 400. The next one starts at 400. This one ends at 800, so the next one starts at 800, and so on and so on. And the highest grocery band is people who spend between 2,000 and 2,400. All right. And there's not many people that do spend that much. There's only one person. Right. So how many people in total do we have in this sample? Well, there's 30 of them. And how do I know that? Is if you add up the frequency column, you add up the 0, 7, 14, 5, 3, and 1, you'll get 30. So that's the total number of people. And that total is represented by the symbol n, is 30. Right. So this is the data we presented with. Now, we don't know the exact amount that people are spending. For instance, if you look at this interval here, the second interval, we know 7 people spend between 400 and 800, but we don't know the exact amounts. For instance, those 7 people, we don't know the first person could spend 401, the next person could spend 403, right? All the way to the last person who could spend nothing more than 800. That person probably spent 799. And there's 1, 2, all the way to 7 people in this interval here, right? We know this because the frequency is 7. We don't know these numbers. And if we did, we could easily work with the average, like how we did previously. But we don't. All we know is that they spend between that amount. So when our data is grouped like this, the best we can do is make estimates, right? And how we make those estimates is we assume that they spend the middle value of the interval. So if you look at this second interval here, the middle value of that interval is 600. And how did I get 600? Well, the upper limit is 800, the lower limit is 400. So the midpoint is halfway between that. And how do we find the midpoint? Well, we add the upper and the lower limit. So 800 plus 400, and we divide it by 2. If you do that, you get 600. So the midpoint for this second interval is 600. For the first interval, that midpoint is 200 because it's the upper limit, which is 400 plus 0 all over 2, gives me 200. And that's how we get these midpoints here, this column here. And I do that for all the rows. These midpoints are very important, and the symbol that represents these midpoints is X. Right? Does everyone understand that? How to get the midpoints? It's very important you understand that, because if you don't get that, you're not going to be able to answer the rest of the question. I'm going to go to chat. If anyone has any questions on that, please, now is the time before we move on, because we're going to build on that. All good? Just let me know. I don't just want to continue if anyone's lost. I'd rather clarify that. Okay, can someone say, okay, thank you. All right, please, everyone, if you're not comfortable with letting me know, please, feel free to chat here. This is what these sessions are for. There are no silly questions, and I'm here to help you with this. Okay, so if you don't understand, now is the time. All right. Now that we got these 3 columns, okay, now we're going to use your calculator to do a lot of the work for us, right? So in our calculator, what we're going to do is we're going to store 2 columns of values. We're going to store this column, and we're going to store this column here, these 2 columns. Your frequency, which is this column, this is your frequency, and your X. Now, in your calculator, right, what I want you to do is, I want you to press mode. So I'll press mode first. Right, and then you're going to select stat, the option that has stat in it, STAT. Whatever number is next to it, you press that. Okay, press that. All right, then you'll see a third option that says 1 minus var. So we've done this before. I know this seems like I'm repeating myself, but there's a reason why I'm making you do this again. Whatever number is next to it, for me it's 1, select that. Right, how many of you don't, let me click spot, don't have a frequency column? Okay, what I'm asking is, after you followed my instructions and you press the 1 minus var, all you see is just an X column. I want to know how many of you don't have the second column, which is frequency. You should have this. This is what we're going to get to. We need a column with X, and then the second column is frequency. How many of you don't have that? Give me a heads up in the chat. Does everyone have the frequency column? People? So everyone has both these columns when you press that. Anyone that doesn't have both these columns? Anyone only has the X column? Does everyone see both these columns? right. Thank you, Tara. All right. Nadi, very good. Okay, thanks. I need this feedback. All right. I'm going to show you how to get the frequency column. Okay. All right. What you're going to do is you're going to follow my instructions. Right. You're going to press on. You're going to press. Give me a second. Yeah. One. Okay. First button you're going to press is Shift. Okay. After you press the on button, press on. Now follow my instructions like to the T. Press Shift first. Press this. All right. Second, you're going to press Mode. Either what you follow. So first you press Shift. Second you press Mode. All right. Now you'll see a whole lot of options. The option I want you to look for is Stat. And if you don't see Stat, use the cursor button. There's a cursor button. It's the big blue button with the arrows in it. You know, the up, down, left, right. I want you to scroll down until you see an option that says Stat. S-T-A-T. S-T-A-T. Whatever number is next to it, if it's 3, that's the number you press. Press that. And everyone sees something that's asking you, do you want your frequency on or off? You're going to select on. If it's option 1 for on, that's what you press. All right. All right. You should have done that. And if you've done that, now when you press mode, and you choose the stat option, and then you choose the 1 minus var, you should see both. Let me know who doesn't see both now. Got it. Okay. Taya, you have it now. Sinead, you got it. See a thumbs up. All right. Okay, so everyone's got the X and the frequency column. All right, so what we need to do now is we need to capture our data in this table. All right, everyone should be seeing this on the calculator, the X column and the frequency column. See it like this. Yeah, you should see this 2 columns. So you're going to capture the X data here. So remember, there's your X data. Don't mix it up. Okay, there's your X column. You're going to capture the first number 200, and you're going to press equals to. Then you're going to capture 600, and you're going to press equals to all the way to the last number, which is 2,200. All right. When you finish that, move the cursor to the frequency. The first number you'll capture for frequency is 0. Then you're going to capture 7. Remember, to move to the next line, you just press equals to. All the way to the last number, which is 1. This is what you should have. So do that for me. And once you finish that, you've captured all the numbers, give me a heads up in the chat so I know everyone's finished. Okay, please let me know once you're finished. I'm just going to quickly go to the chat if there's any questions. Everyone's there. Okay, let me share the data again. All right, so remember, capture this column here that you see under X, and capture this for frequency in your calculator. I'm going to give you, I'll give you about 2 minutes, and then just give me a heads up in the chat. I need everyone needs to tell me when they're finished. I'm going to ask you individually. Go back. If people are still capturing it. Okay, is everyone finished? Also busy with it? Anyone finish captured? People, okay, I'm just gonna call back to the data and I'm gonna assume everyone captured it, right? And then I'm gonna quiz you now on this. Once you capture the data, right, the next thing you wanna do is you wanna use this data to get the average and any other measures that you may need later, all right? So what I want you to do now is you're gonna work out the average, X bar. And your calculator will do that for you. You just need to access the X bar once you're finished. And how you do that is exactly how we did it earlier. Nothing's different from that, right? To do it, right, you press your on button on your calculator. Then you're gonna press Shift, right? Then you're gonna press the button 1 because there's a stat function above it. And then you're gonna choose var, VAR. Okay, and then you'll see your X bar there. And then select that, and then write whatever the average is, whatever you get for X bar, write it in the chat. Okay, so Shift 1 var X bar. Okay, I'll go back. Okay, I'll go back. Right. So Taniva, do you do you understand how to capture the data? Are you good with that part? Are you okay with capturing the data? Not bad. It should be 109 3.33. Okay, so you're okay with capturing the data. Okay, let me go back to the whiteboard. Okay, so everyone, if you capture the data, right, you should get an average of 109 3.33. Who got that value? If you didn't get that, you probably just made a mistake capturing the data. And how you could check your data again, you can sense check it. All right, you press Shift 1 and Option 2. Look at your data and make sure that you capture the data as it is there. So your first number for X would have been 200, right? 600, the next number, 1000, 1400, 18, 2. And then your frequency column, make sure you capture that values. 0, 7, I'll do it now with you, but the number you should get, let's check it. $109 3.33. So Tara, did you maybe make a mistake with any of your data that you captured? Maybe look at your calculated data and look at the numbers that you captured accordingly. How many if you go 109 3.33? Yeah, very good. The rest of you, is anyone lost? Do you want me to go back? Thanks, Sasika. Sandiva, do you want me to go back to? Okay, so you captured the data, and I think it's just the question of how to get the average. Yes, Mr. Number, got it. Okay, Taya, good. Right, so at least this is the mistake capturing the data. Sandiva, where do you want me to go back to? Do you want me to go back to how to get the average or how to capture the data? Say, I get it. Oh, okay, all right, okay. Okay, so everyone's good on this. You know how to work out the average for group data, right? Now to work out the median, it's a bit more difficult, right? You have to use a formula. Now, you're not expected to memorize the formula, but you are expected to know how to use it, all right? So I'll show you how to do that now for the median. And if you know how to do it for the median, the mode is very, very similar. Okay, so I'm going to clear this. Let's see, there. Okay, cool. The median for group data is given by this formula here. and you need to know how to use it, right? You don't need to memorize it. What's going to be tricky is you need to understand what the symbols in this formula mean, because you're not told that in the exam. You're just given this formula. It's left to you to know what values to insert into this formula. So for this formula, you'll see that the first symbol here is OME. It's one thing, it's one symbol. The O, M, and E are not three different things. It's just a subscript. Okay, OME. Now, in order to get this number, you first need to identify which interval pertains to your median number. Okay. Now, the thing is, you don't know what the middle number is because you don't explicitly know what the what the grocery spending is. You just know that there's a certain number of people that spend between these amounts, but you don't know the exact amounts. If you did, it would be easy to work out the median. But these intervals are going from lowest to the highest interval from the top to the bottom. So there are 30 people in total. So that means if we had to rank them from lowest to highest, the middle person would be the 15th person, right? And how did we get that? Well, it's n over 2. It's 15. Now, I know before I told you it was n plus 1 over 2, but that is for ungrouped data. Okay, unfortunately, the formula is different for grouped and ungrouped. For ungrouped, it's n plus 1 over 2, which we did earlier. But now, in our case, we're going to use this formula, n over 2. And now n is 30. Okay, so 30 over 2 is 15. So the 15th person is the middle person. Now, what we need to know is, if we had to rank these people from 1 to 30, in which interval would the 15th person be in? Okay, now, if you look at this first interval, there's nobody there. So that 15th person can't be there, right? Because there's absolutely no one there. When you get to the second interval, right, you have 7 people in total. So from here to here, there's 7 people in total. So if we are still ranking them, there's 1, there's 2, there's 3, all the way to 7, that 15 person cannot be in that interval because that 15 person is here. So the second interval is not the interval as well. But when you get to the third interval, now you've got 14 people there. So in total, you actually have 21. How did I get 21? Well, 0 plus 7 plus 14. So when you get to the third interval, it actually has everyone all the way to the 21st person. So that 15th person has to be there. That's the interval where the 15th person is. So that's your interval for where the median is. Does everyone get that? It's very important that you understand that, because if you don't know how to find that interval, then you won't be able to substitute any of the values because all the values are going to be wrong. So please, now is the time to tell me that you're not understanding how to find the interval where the median number is. Okay, so remember the middle person is the person where you divide your frequency by 2, and that'll tell you what number or what position that person should be, or the data point should be. Our n is 30, so we divide 30 by 2, and that means it's the 15th person that we're looking for. And how do we know which interval that 15th person is? Well, we keep adding up the frequency going down until it exceeds 15. We keep doing that, and you can see we've exceeded 15 when we get to this interval here. The moment we've exceeded that interval, then we know that's the interval that the median number is. So it's this interval here that I put an arrow. Okay, I'm going to go to the chat and see if anyone is not following or confused, but it's very important that you understand this. Thanks, Taya. Everyone all good? I assume everyone's understanding that. All right, but let me know otherwise. Okay, so now that we know that that is the median interval, then all the values for that formula can be derived based on that interval. So OME, what this symbol means, it just means the lower limit of that interval. So what is the lower limit? Well, it's 800. There's the lower limit here. So that's 800. Okay, your C in this formula is what I've told you earlier. It's the class width. How wide is the class? Okay, so you can see it goes from 800 to 1200, so the width is 400. Okay, C, now N, we've shown that earlier, your N is your total frequency, the T, and then you got this symbol here. This is one symbol, it's F bracket less than. It's one thing. What that means, all it means is what is the sum of the frequency for everything before that interval. So I'll mark it in green so you don't get confused. So there's our median interval. It's everything before that, these two. Everything before that, you add up the frequencies. So it's 7 plus 0. So here it's 7 plus 0, which is 7. That's your f of less than. Okay. And then the last symbol we need is what's in the denominator of that formula. And that is FME. So your FME is this, the frequency of the median interval. There's your median interval. What is the frequency of that interval? It's 14. Now you have all the values you need to substitute into this equation. And if you do that, if you substitute all those values and you hit equals to get the final answer, you'll see that your median is 822.9. 822.9 rounded to one decimal. Okay, what is the important thing is that you understand how to determine which interval the median number is, and then how to pull the values for that formula. It's very important that you understand how to do that. Okay, and then the last step is just to put those values into the formula. You can do that as an exercise, but the important thing is that you understand how to get these values. So let's stop there for a second. Check if there's any questions. Right, so far so good. Explain FME, no problem. FME, all it is, it's just, I'll write it out. This is the frequency of the median interval. Of that interval. Take out this. Of the median interval. So this is our median interval, remember? This is what we had to identify first. That's why it's very important that you know which interval the middle number falls in. That's the median interval. And what's the frequency of that interval? It's just what is under the F column, the frequency, and that's 14. That's how you get the 14. Does it make sense? Natalia? Okay, no problem. All right, so that's the median. Now, lastly, we are going to work out the mode. It's a very similar principle, because if you understand how to do the median, the mode is a similar concept. Right, this is the last thing we're going to do for this evening. For the mode, by definition, the mode is which number occurs the most amount of times. So which grocery spending amount occurs the most amount of times. Now the thing is, we don't know the grocery spend amount, right? We're not given that. We're just given the intervals. But what we can determine is which interval has the most amount of spending. And in other words, what I'm asking is, which interval has the most amount of people in that interval? And that's this interval here. It's the 14. If you look at all the rows, which one has the highest F value? And it's this. So I'm going to use a different color. I'm going to use green here. This is the interval that has the most amount of people. And that's your modal interval. Very important that you know this, okay? Once you know it's that interval, then you can get the value for that formula. So your modal interval is also 800, 400. It won't always be the same as your median. In this case, it just happens to be that interval, but you're not guaranteed for it to be the same. How you find it is it's the interval with the highest frequency. All right, and that's this frequency here. And once you know that, then you're going to use the formula for the mode, which is given to you. And very similar to before, you have OMO, and that's just the lowest value for that interval. The lowest value for that interval is 800. So no, go back to the chat and see any questions. Okay. All right. So that's your OMO. Then you got your C in the formula, which is the same as before. It's the width of the class, which is 400. Then you have the symbol here, FM. FM is just the frequency of the model interval. And in that case, if you look at the model interval, it's this one. What is the frequency of that model interval? There it is, it's 14. It's what's in the frequency column, it's 14. Then you got your FM minus 1. Now, FM minus 1, what that means, it's the frequency of the interval before the model interval. That's what the minus 1 is. Before the model interval. And when I say before, I mean the class that's lower than it. So one below it. So it's the one before it. It's this one here. So what's the frequency of that interval? It's 7. So in our case, FM minus 1 is 7. Okay, so in our case here, this is 7. Now, if FM minus 1 is the frequency of the interval before the model interval, and the keyword is before, then what do you think FM plus 1 is? And you can write that number in the chat. What do you think that value is for this FM plus 1? If FM minus 1 is the frequency of the interval before the model interval, what do you think FM plus 1 is? Looking at the table. Very good. Nice. Good to know. It is 5. That's the frequency of the interval after the model interval. So the next highest one is this one here. Yeah, it's 5. So FM plus 1 is 5. So now you have the values for everything in this formula. You have FM plus 1, you have FM minus 1, you have FM, you have C, and you have OMO. You just have to substitute everything into this formula. And when you do that, you'll find that the mode, the value for the mode, is 817.5. Okay. Everyone, very good, Taya. Okay, so everyone follows? Everyone all good? That's what I want to cover today. So what we did was the central measures, which are just 3 measures. It's the median, it's the mean, or in other words, the average, and the mode. And we need to know how to do it for ungrouped data and for group data. Okay, and you need to get comfortable with your calculator because that'll do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. You just got to know how to capture the data. Just so you know, now that you've set up your calculator to have an X and a frequency column, it'll always be there. You don't have to keep setting that up. Every time you call the stat function, you'll always see the X and the frequency column. All right, the floor is yours for any question that you have. Anything you're not certain about, do you have any questions, please, now is the time. I hope the content that was covered tonight is clear, you understand it, but yeah, I'll make the recording available if you want to watch it again. Any questions? Or all good? Thank you. Very glad to hear that. Good. I'm very happy to hear that. Okay, job done then. Thanks for the feedback. I really appreciate it. All right, then yeah, I think everyone's okay with this. All right, thanks for the feedback, everyone. So we will chat again soon. Please, but if you're not sure about anything, drop me an email and I'll get back to you. Otherwise, we will chat again next week. Oh, is there a question? Please feel free to ask. You too. Enjoy the evening. Cynthia, do you have a question or is it so? Okay, just assuming we're good. Where is the submission link for this? Submissions. Oh, for your assignment. I'm not sure, but I can find out for you. I will ask for that. Okay, and just drop me an email as well. This is a reminder, but I'll send out the email now so I don't forget. Okay, so the submission link for the submission. Okay. All right. I'll get back to you on that, Sanjay. Thanks. All right. Have a good night. Thanks for joining.